and events page.
Imagine a place free of problems, scams, and thievery. A place where comfort is your only concern. Imagine Comfort Time Live. Coming to you live to tackle all of your home comfort concerns with your hosts, Tom and Dino.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the new catchy.
I like that.
I like that. Good job, Mr. Cliff.
Oh, gee, come on.
Yeah, good stuff.
Man, I'm wanting to dance on the tables right now.
Let's turn the
That
video.
won't be necessary.
Let's turn the video off. For that first. We don't want people seeing that live on the radio. And that's one of the problems with having video on the radio.
You can't say oops without somebody knowing why.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, great stuff. Great stuff. Well, welcome to Comfort Time Live, ladies and gentlemen. The show that dedicates itself to educating you, the listeners, the homeowners, on how to deal with problems, issues surrounding your home. Everything from taxes to construction. If you can think of it in your home and it's going to provide you comfort, that's what we speak of. And we got a lot of great stuff coming today, but do not forget that you can watch and listen to any of our three shows on ComfortTimeLive.com. And go there. You can actually watch us live in the studio right now. In the bottom left-hand corner, we got a special guest that's going to be on the phone here just a second. We're going to go to him, but a lot of great information. We also are on Blog Talk Radio on Wednesdays from 7 to 8. And then there's another little surprise that you got to go to Comfort Time Live to find out on Saturdays. So Saturdays from 3 to 4, there's a little special prize. But we can't talk about that, so you have to go to ComfortTimeLive.com to find out all about that and what we're going to be doing. So without further ado, we have been doing a series of shows called Homes, Problems, and Solutions. And the show we're going to be doing today on that regards mold, mildew, and other odors. Now,
do I need to put my shoes back on?
Please do. And we have a special guest. After reading his bio,
wow.
The only thing I can say.
When's he running for president?
He's got a bio bigger than your rap sheet.
That's right.
Or I guess I should say it's only second to your rap sheet.
That's right. Only second to my rap sheet.
But after reading everything, I want to call this guy the doctor of IAQ, indoor air quality, because he's just absolutely amazing. And we have him on the line with us here today, Mr. Barry Westbrook. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Now, Barry, you're calling from where?
I'm just south of Nashville, Tennessee, in Franklin.
Franklin, Tennessee.
Got
wow. What's it like there?
It's a beautiful morning. It's going to be hot. Probably not hot compared to what you're used to, but up in the 90s.
Up in the 90s.
Wow, that's hot today.
That's a toasty day.
That may beat us.
It doesn't get much. It doesn't get much past the low to mid 90s here, believe it or not. A lot of folks think that we do get up into the 100, but I very rarely have ever seen it above 95, 96 degrees.
I'm showing a high of 86 today.
Oh, with 150% humidity.
Yeah, well, it's a whole different story there.
Well, Barry, give us a little background. Just a snippet of the bio, because we don't have 6.5 hours to go through your impressive bio that you have. But just tell us a little bit about your background and your experience.
Well, I come from a consulting background, so for 13 years I was in the consulting business, and you build your resume with the credentials that you have. And I'm a professional engineer and an industrial hygienist and safety professional. But about a little over 10 years ago, I started Doc Air with the intent to focus on indoor air quality issues. And because of some of my background in construction and engineering, I kind of gravitated toward the concept of not only diagnosing these problems but fixing them. And one of the reasons for that was just the lack of knowledgeable companies to address the problems that we're finding.
Oh. Yeah, boy, you couldn't have said that any better. The lack of knowledge. Competent companies.
Wow.
I started talking about having competency testing for businesses.
Everybody'd fail. I mean, you would only have about 3% of the companies last.
Unreal. Go ahead, Barry. I'm sorry. I just had to jump in on that one.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is that you don't know what you don't know, and many times consumers, homeowners, business owners they know there's a problem. They don't know exactly what it is, and they will call a company with the idea, okay, I'm going to call a mold remediation company, or I'm going to call an HVAC company, and the assumption they make is that company is going to show up with the first intention to try to serve their best needs. Unfortunately, most companies are kind of set up to sell what they sell. And so you end up a lot of times with something shoehorned into your situation that may not be exactly what you need. So our focus is to first, before we offer a solution, we want to make sure that we are looking at it from the perspective of the customer, the client, and make sure that we understand what the problem is, and then look at all the different options, and then really try to find the best solution before we make a proposal to fix it.
Amen to that, man. I'll tell you.
So it's educating the consumer properly on what they need.
And to me, that's one of the biggest opportunities that's out there right now. How many consumers have any idea about how a heating and air conditioning system works?
It's about zero.
And even builders, if you're buying a house, you probably presume that the builder is very knowledgeable on all the systems and subsystems in a building. But I'll just tell you from firsthand knowledge that they're rare. Most builders kind of trust the sub to know what they're doing. Well, what happens, at least here in Tennessee, is there's nobody really looking after the consumer's best interest because there's nobody that's really qualified or knowledgeable to know what to look for.
Yep. And Consumer Reports actually just recently did an article, I think in the most recent magazine, that talked about the number of breakdowns in air conditioning systems from when a contractor had the system installed versus when a homeowner hired their own air conditioning contractor to have the equipment installed. There was like a 17%. I'd have to pull the article up.
Wow.
But there was like a 17% difference. There was a larger breakdown in subcontractor installations versus the homeowner, to your point, Barry. And as you know, in the construction industry, it's 95% of the time low man gets the bid.
Yeah, and the solution, there's a fairly simple solution. Somebody just needs to be checking on this stuff. And the new international building codes, I think, are going to be a part of the solution because if you're building a house and you have to have a duct blaster test done on the duct work, if you have to have a blower door test done on the house, a lot of these things are going to be resolved.
Now let's for our listeners. And for Dino's fairly new in the industry, let's give them an explanation of what a duct blaster and a blower door are.
Well, one of the things that gets overlooked, most heating and air conditioning companies, their focus is installing a box that will either heat and cool your house or both. And then there's ductwork that that reaches out to all the parts of the building to supply the air. And as long as you can push a button on the wall and it'll get cold, or push a button on the wall and it'll get hot, that's what most people expect it to do. But if you want it to be efficient, and if you want it to do a good job of removing moisture, and if you don't want to have a minimal amount of dust in your house, you want the ductwork to be installed tightly, and that there are not leaks and gaps and cracks in the system. And unfortunately, since air is invisible, this is something that happens rarely up in where I'm from. And one way to make sure that does happen is to do a pressure test. And it's fairly simple. It doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of money. And it basically tells you whether everything is sealed up or not. And it's a fan with a pressure gauge attached to it. And you just basically seal off the supply registers in the house and the return, and you put some air pressure on it, and you see how much air leakage there is.
Oh, how neat.
And that was actually, that was a big thing when the federal government or the local were offering the rebate if you had your ducts checked, inspected for percentages of leakage.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, they were doing that. They were actually people scrambling around down here in Florida. The tough part is that it lasted, maybe 2 weeks, Barry?
The test.
Yeah, when the federal government had their actually, yeah, I was
the stimulus.
Yeah, the
so-called stimulus.
Yeah, for the duck program. Did they have it nationally, or was it just in Florida?
Oh, and that's part of the problem. It's like some of these things we oughtn't to, we shouldn't wait for the government to come in and help us. They should be a part of what you do. I mean, Ford said it best back in it's been several years ago, but the quality goes in before the name goes on. Some of these things need to be done as you're doing your installation. They don't need to be something that you go back and add on after the work is done. And so if the consumer knew what you and I know about this, they would have already been asking for this. They just assume that it's being installed properly, and
exactly,
they're startled sometimes when I open up a return air plenum in a house and I look down, and we have a lot of crawl spaces up here, probably not in your area, but up here we have a lot of crawl spaces, and many times I can actually take my hand and put it into the return plenum and stick it down in a crack, and it'll actually go into the crawl space. And
oh my gosh,
brand new homes, and we're talking about multi-million-dollar homes. It's the great unifier, because in our area, no matter how rich or how poor you are, you probably have sorry ductwork.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the thing that homeowners don't know. So they rely on the contractors.
Yep.
And a lot of the problems with the contractors are that the owner of the company goes and gets his license, gets certified, brings it back, but because he's struggling so much just trying to run his business, he can't keep an eye on his guys, or doesn't train them properly. So they go out in the field, they do this kind of work that we're talking about, and it's never re-inspected by the owner. So it turns around and makes them look bad.
I totally understand that, Barry. I was in a house the other day, stuck my head into the return to look at the ductwork, and wait, where's the ductwork? All I'm looking at is their crawl space underneath their home, and I'm like, this is interesting. So your AC system is just sucking air from underneath your house.
Exactly.
And the funny thing was, we won't mention any names of the company, but there was a company just out there that did an inspection of the system
and missed it.
So.
And it's you have to be committed to that. They're up here in Tennessee. We also have a lot of problems with water in buildings, and it's not as complicated. I mean, if you think about it, we know how to get water out of buildings and water away from buildings. I mean, we've had plumbing ever since the Roman times. So it's just that what'll happen here is you'll have a downspout or something that'll dump next to the house, and that's about as far as the stormwater management goes. And so a lot of these problems are easily resolved. It takes a commitment to do it. And with the HVAC ductwork, what's the missing opportunity is the fact that it really doesn't take that much time or effort to do it right.
No, it doesn't. You're already there. You're already putting the labor and the materials and whatnot. You'd be lucky if it would take an extra 5 to 10 minutes to do some of the things that, by properly sealing each of the joints the way they should. Spending an extra couple seconds to hang the ductwork properly. I think it's now in residential is like every 4 foot or something like that, Barry.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll go into attics and you'll see this stuff just bundled together like a bunch of wires.
90-degree kinks in stuff, and
unreal. Now we actually were talking on the Blog Talk Radio. We were talking about basements and crawl spaces and things like that. Now, since a lot of our listeners down here in South Florida do own homes in the northern part and the western parts of the United States, so they can probably relate to what we're going to talk about. But how do you go about keeping water out of the home so that we don't, out of the basements and crawl spaces, so that we don't have these issues?
Well, again, it starts with just stop doing what you've been doing. Builders will start to tell me how they do drainage, and I want to interrupt them and say, look, don't tell me what you've been doing, because that's not working. Because I can go, if I go house to house and we've got water in the building, or we've got cracked bricks from erosion, what you're doing now is not working. So I actually stumbled on a book several years ago by an engineer, and it was called Repairing Structural Problems in Buildings. And his belief was that what we're doing wrong with buildings is we tend to put drainage systems right around the perimeter of the foundation. And what his claim is, and I believe he's right, is that when you do that, you invite water to come to the building, and then what you're doing, you're essentially building a moat around the building. And what happens is that eventually, that if you put a drain at the bottom of that, there has to be water built up into that moat system to cause it to flow away. So you're essentially asking water to come to the building and then trying to, again, have it drain away. So what we want to do when the water falls on the roof and comes down to the gutters and the downspouts, it's a fairly simple imperative. It's get the water away from the building and make sure it doesn't get back to the building. And if you just do that, you're probably not going to be able to do it by just putting a splash block at the base of your downspout.
Keep it simple.
And we'd like to use PVC or some kind of smooth wall pipe that's going to last, and run it underground. Take it someplace, either to a percolator out in the yard or to a ditch But
take it to my neighbor's yard,
or to your neighbor's yard, which is another problem.
Hey, thanks, Barry. I'm going to run a pipe this afternoon right to my underground, right to my neighbor's basement.
You can do that in Virginia.
And that was compliments of Barry Westbrook. No.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, Barry. And when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Barry Westbrook from Dock Air. Is that correct, Barry?
That's right.
From Dock Air out of Alabama, I think he said, right?
Well, he's talking about duck
northern
blasting and
Alabama.
building moats. I'm like, duck blasting. I'm going to go duck hunting.
No, wait a minute. He's got an IQ above 90. He's not from Alabama.
Oh, all right.
All right, you're listening to Cover Time Live with Tom and Dino. We'll be back in just a minute.
Tired of struggling to find the right air conditioning contractor? Heard those horror stories about people being scammed out of thousands of dollars? Well, Comfort Time Live has found a great air conditioning contractor that they approve and you can trust. Ranger Air Conditioning Service. Ranger has been in business on the Treasure Coast for more than 38 years, providing the best in quality and customer service. Ranger Air Conditioning Service is family-owned and operated by Tom Ranger. He and his highly trained staff and team members are waiting to earn your business. So give Ranger Air Conditioning Service a call at 772-546-7777. That's Ranger Air Conditioning Service at 772-546-7777 and recommended by Comfort Time Live. Don't forget to tell them you heard about them here on WPSL 1590 and receive a special discount.
Benjamin Franklin Plumbing can help you schedule the on-time help you need. Busted water heater? ScheduleSomeHelp.com. Leaky faucet? ScheduleSomeHelp.com. Help with your honey-do list? Perhaps. Get help for $25 at ScheduleSomeHelp.com.
Limitations and exclusions apply. See site for details.
Elite Electric with security lighting to surge protection and everything in between. How do you think they got their name? Elite Electric. Visit online at EliteElectricAndAir.com and learn more about their services. Elite Electric. Service today. Proud sponsor of Comfort Time Live, Friday mornings at 11 on WPSL. Elite Electric, specializing in all your electrical needs, from security lighting to surge protection and everything in between. How do you think they got their name? Elite Electric. Elite Electric has been family owned and operated on the Treasure Coast since 1988, and they're recommended by Comfort Time Live. Visit online at EliteElectricAndAir.com and learn more about their services. Elite Electric. Service today. Proud sponsor of Comfort Time Live, Friday mornings at 11 on WPSL 1590.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and we have our special guest, Barry Westbrook, with us. Now, if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, ladies and gentlemen, give us a call at 772-340-1590, 340-1590. Any kind of question you have about indoor air quality, if you have a crawl space, a basement, maybe you're just trying to figure out just where to bury that body. Barry was probably educated enough to let you know how you can do that without having water intrusion.
And control the odors.
And control the odors. There you go.
Fantastic.
You was talking about those qualifications.
I have an ex-wife. Never mind.
All right, so we talked a little bit about keeping the water and stuff out. Just keep it simple. You know, it's a lot of these guys try to overthink things, or they, like you said, Barry. I've been doing it for 32 years, so
It's right. It's the way we do it.
I haven't had anybody complain yet. Well, that's right. You haven't had anybody.
They don't know any better.
They don't know any better to complain. To Barry's point. So now, what type of conditions ideally do we want to have in a crawl space?
Dry.
There you.
That
was simple enough.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Even with me.
We Well, let me say there's more to that. That's a complicated issue. But I think that when you talk about mold, people there's been a whole industry that's grown up around the fear of mold, and to me, was mold not around 30 years ago? I mean, you didn't hear about it then.
It was around before we were born.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know about Dino over here, but I know before you and I were born.
Yeah, right, exactly. But the point we want to make is that if you've been living in a house for 20 years and raised your family, and your child is he's got a scholarship to go to the university and all that, obviously you can live in the house. And a lot of times in a real estate transaction, we have people that they want to believe that there's no way that they're going to be able to live in a house that has mold in the crawl space. Well, unfortunately, most of them, at least in our area, do. And one of the things that is confusing to people is they assume that mold has to be a result of water in the crawl space. And really, they're two different things. We don't like water in the basement or the building envelope for a lot of reasons. We don't like it because what it does to the foundation and the bearing soils underneath the footing and those kind of things. But most of the mold in our region is caused by water in the air, not water. In other words, it's water that's outside your house that flows in to the crawl space through so-called foundation venting, and it's just we talk about like a day. Today's a great day. It's going to be up in the 90s, and so the dew point, it's something that you can actually go out on the Weather Channel and look for. As the dew point starts to get up into around 70 degrees or 71 degrees, that air is actually the source of the water. And when it flows into the crawl space, it doesn't dry the crawl space out. It actually brings water into the crawl space. And anything that's below the temperature of that dew point is going to sweat. So in July and August and September here in Middle Tennessee, when you go into a crawl space, you see water dripping off the ductwork and off of the insulation.
Right.
And that ties back to the ductwork leakage. A lot of times, if your ductwork is leaking cold air into the crawl space, it'll chill the crawl space down. And then when the compressor goes off, that hot, humid air comes in, and then you basically created a pump system. You cool the crawl space down, the outside air flows into the crawl space and brings the water, and you're essentially pumping water into your building envelope.
So is the key then to have an airtight crawl space or just proper ventilation?
Well, up here, a lot of builders like crawl spaces, and that's the way they've done it all their lives. The guy that's been building them for 30 years, he's always built it over a crawl space. My belief is that if I were advising you to build a house, I would try to talk you out of having a crawl space at all.
Just put it on a slab.
On a slab. And it's a great way to take advantage of some, poor man's geothermal. If you insulate the perimeter of that slab and bond it to the earth, you have a great way of modulating the temperature of your home. And I personally have built several houses that way, and I really like it. And it does take a little planning and all that, and you have to change where you're going to put your ductwork and your electrical and that kind of thing. But it's not difficult to do. It's just a different way of doing things.
Yeah,
but if you are going to,
all the homes down here are.
Yeah,
I mean, probably
right.
90+% of the homes down here are on slabs, and right. To this day, I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years. I've never seen ductwork in a crawl space sweat with a house that's on a slab.
Right.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I'm going to think on that one for a minute.
That's a great point.
So there's the solution. 340-1590. If you have questions or comments for Barry Westbrook, give him a call. Give us a call here at the studio, and he'll be happy to answer those questions. Now, one big thing that as we were kind of reading down some of the topics and how we were going to discuss, not a lot to do with crawl spaces and basements, but it just jumped right out at me, and dust mites. Dino asked me, well, dust mites, can you ever filter something enough to get rid of dust mites?
Well, the dust mites are one of those. A lot of the things that we deal with are things that were outside that came to the inside. Now, the original grandmother of the dust mites may have come from the outside, but after she arrives in the house, they're actually growing and proliferating in your bed.
Yummy.
So, controlling moisture in the building. From when I talk to allergists, what they'll tell me is that although mold gets all of the publicity, that for a lot of people, dust mites are more of an allergic problem than mold is.
And I'm the only one to proliferate to my bed. I don't want dust mites proliferating in my bed.
Dude, I do not know
But you're out of town.
what you do in your bed, man. I do not want to go there. This is a family show.
But that's a huge topic. I mean, you see that a lot when they do these the TV shows and whatnot about going into hotels and things like that.
Vacuuming on a mattress.
Yeah,
and
the dust mites and whatnot. But it's got to be. I mean, how do you get rid of something like that?
Well, prevention is with lots of problems. The best way to deal with it is to prevent it in the first place. And dust mites can be minimized by controlling the humidity in your house. If you keep your house dry, then the dust mites can't survive. And it's the same thing with mold. You know, when I do a lot of seminars for realtors, and I ask them, I say, what are the 3 main causes of mold? And the answer is moisture, moisture, moisture. And they relate to that for they're saying that most important thing about a building or a property is location.
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So if you just focus on moisture control with buildings, lots of good things happen. You don't have buckled floors, you don't have dust mites, you don't have mold. Good things happen, and it's not that difficult to do. There's a variety of ways to do it, but one of the things to do is to understand how air flows in and out of your building.
Right.
There are also things called dehumidifiers that you can use in certain situations that are kind of provide you with some extra insurance.
Now, let me ask you a question. That's been a topic, and there's actually a couple companies down here in South Florida that they just sell the heck out of those whole house dehumidifiers, and I want to hear your opinion on, air conditioning properly versus a dehumidifier.
Yeah, because I thought if you've got a properly sized air handler that's doing what it should, it is going to dehumidify your air.
Right. Well, I'm not sure what they're selling down there, but if you're in the business,
I don't think they know what they're selling either, Barry.
Well, and that's true, because somebody has said, hey, you can upsell. Here's a box that you can put, you can add on, and your customers will buy this, and it's extra money for you and extra money for us. It's
right.
Like, if you're a technician, you just kind of take what they told you for the truth, and that's the problem. It's like there needs to be more applied science in this arena. But an air conditioner is a dehumidifier. In fact, in your region and in my region too, most of when you pay your electric bill to run your air conditioning system, most of that cost is to remove water from the air, by far.
Yep.
So when your air conditioner's on, it's doing 2 things. It's lowering the temperature of the air, and part of the cost of that air conditioner running is doing that. But the big part of it in Florida and in Tennessee and even places like Boston, as far as the percentage, is removing moisture. The exception is when you go to some place like Phoenix or Las Vegas or Colorado Springs,
20,
where it's dry.
30% humidity. Yeah.
Right.
So when somebody says they're going to add a whole house dehumidifier, my question would be, well, isn't the air conditioner doing that already?
Yep, that's exactly what I ask, and I would probably lay dimes to donuts that the first issue is that the air conditioner, 1, is oversized, and at number 2, they probably have duct leakage. Right,
and that with some of the new variable refrigerant volume systems and some of the multi-speed fans and compressor units, they are a little bit more tolerant of oversizing.
Right.
So probably the most likely thing is that they've got a lot of leaks in their building envelope somewhere. There's a lot of air going in and out of their building that they didn't really know about.
And that leads to the topic that I just absolutely just been waiting and just dying to say.
What's that?
Based on his comment there is, well, does your home suck?
Right.
Now, you talked about being in a cardboard box, so Dino, so we know your house sucks.
Yeah, I live in a 2-story cardboard box. It's fairly well insulated and ventilated.
but building pressurization, it's more predominant for people to recognize in commercial buildings when you walk to a building and the door is either being held open or being held in or out. It's either hard to get open, or the door, when you open it, it basically opens itself.
Oh, it's got so much pressure inside of it. You're
right.
facing a 60-mile-an-hour wind to walk into a building.
But tell us about on the residential side, which has a lot to do with what you're just mentioning, Barry.
Well, the analogy of the box is really a good one because that's how when I walk up to a building,
He's
I look
making
at it
fun
like
of
a
your
big
house.
box. Whether it's a cardboard box or one that's got a brick veneer, it's a box.
The nice thing is it's very easy for him to change the color of it frequently.
Right.
Hey, some days it says refrigerator on the side. Some days it says, washer dryer. Just depends where I get my new box from.
Yeah, and you get a new house every time it rains, right?
That's right.
So when I look at a box, look at a house, what I'm trying to see and I visualize is I want to know where the air flows in and where the air flows out. If you have, there are a lot of recessed lights in the house, attic access doors that are, gaps in the building envelope. Even electrical outlets are penetrations, and so air is leaking in and out. One of the most beneficial but simple tools that I use is smoke. Got this little canister of smoke that I can actually puff around and I can tell which direction the air is flowing at a door opening, and I can tell how fast it's flowing. So it gives me an idea about what's happening with the building. And typically what we see here in Middle Tennessee is there's kind of a chimney effect where air tends to flow in at the lowest part of the building and it gets essentially sucked in, and then it flows up through the building and it exits somewhere at the ceiling level. So what happens if you have a basement, for instance, or just a multi-story building, is that the place that's the coolest place in the building is also the place where all of the hot, moist air comes in. So you have the ideal situation to have condensation and mold growth, and part of that is just the fact that the lowest floor sucks.
Yeah. I just love that.
I tell you what, I am just absolutely amazed. About a month and a half ago, I got into this business, and I was just probably like every other consumer. You know what? It's an air conditioning system. Throw it in, it cools down my house, heats it in the winter time. I'm so amazingly just baffled at how much science is behind this and how much engineering. It's not just about blowing cold air in your house. It's about, is your house sealed properly? Are you ventilated properly? Do you have enough return? There is just so much to this. And for our listeners, I bet there's a lot of jaws on the ground right now thinking, wow, we just never knew that all this really existed for a good, proper system in our house.
And 90% of the contractors that are in this area that go to install them don't know either. And I know that for a fact. I've done a lot of training and seminars and was actually a manufacturer's rep for a couple large manufacturers locally. And I've been in thousands of dealers' businesses, and it's amazing what they don't know. Amazing.
One of the things, Barry, we've talked a lot about mold. Let's talk, is there good mold? Is there bad mold? And, vice versa. What's the difference?
I think, generally speaking, no. People shouldn't look at it that way, and I think it just leads to confusion, and it'll probably lead you to pay somebody money for something that gives you no benefit. To me, it's analogous for somebody saying there's bad dogs and good dogs, or I hear people talk about black mold, and they say, well, is it black mold? And to me, it's like, is it a black dog? Well, a black dog might be a Great Dane, Cocker Spaniel, Chihuahua,
Is that like, is there a good marriage or a bad marriage? Same concept?
Yeah, they're all bad.
We shouldn't discriminate on the basis of color or mold.
Although they can be green.
Yeah. And what's very interesting about mold, it's fascinating, but mold, even at the subspecies level, you can have two mold types side by side, and they can be different colors.
Right. One of our other shows the other day, I was like, one of the good molds, Zygomycota rhizopus. Well, people don't, besides not being able to spell it or say it, it's bread mold. It's what they make penicillin out of. That's good mold.
So yeah, and even that kind of mold, it's relative to what it's doing for you. If it's something that you want it to be doing for you, that's fine. But if it's actually breaking down your food or making it so that you're going to have to throw it out, then that's a bad thing. So again, back to the cause. If you don't want to have mold in your house, then you want to control the moisture. And whether it's good mold or bad mold, if it's growing on my walls, it's bad mold.
Yeah, it's bad. Exactly. And if it could break, I say, if it could break food down, imagine what it could do to me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break. 340-1590 340-1590. You're listening to Comfort Time Live. Give us a call. Ask Mr. Barry Westbrook, the doctor of indoor air quality, a question. We'll be right back.
Tired of struggling to find the right air conditioning contractor? Heard those horror stories about people being scammed out of thousands of dollars? Well, Comfort Time Live has found a great air conditioning contractor that they approve and you can trust. Ranger Air Conditioning Service. Ranger has been in business on the Treasure Coast for more than 38 years, providing the best in quality and customer service. Ranger Air Conditioning Service is family-owned and operated by Tom Ranger. He and his highly trained staff and team members are waiting to earn your business. So give Ranger Air Conditioning Service a call at 772-546-7777. That's Ranger Air Conditioning Service at 772-546-7777 and recommended by Comfort Time Live. Don't forget to tell them you heard about them here on WPSL 1590 and receive a special discount.
Benjamin Franklin Plumbing would like to help you schedule some help, whatever on-time help you need. For plumbing emergencies like a busted water heater, go to schedulesomehelp.com. Sewage problems? Schedulesomehelp.com. If water is dripping from your ceiling, schedulesomehelp.com. If you need help repairing that leaky faucet or upgrading your shower head, schedulesomehelp.com. Want help with your golf game? Yep, schedulesomehelp.com. Right now, get help for $25 at schedulesomehelp.com. Limitations and exclusions apply. See schedulesomehelp.com for full details. Benjamin Franklin Plumbing can help you schedule the on-time help you need. Busted water heater? Schedulesomehelp.com. Leaky faucet? Schedulesomehelp.com. Help with your honey-do list? Perhaps. Get help for $25 at schedulesomehelp.com.
Limitations and exclusions apply. See site for details.
Elite Electric with security lighting to surge protection and everything in between. How do you think they got their name? Elite Electric. Visit online at eliteelectricanair.com and learn more about their services. Elite Electric. Service today. Proud sponsor of Comfort Time Live, Friday mornings at 11 on WPSL.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Comfort Time Live. Man, I like that. What do they call that? No, what's it called? It's
music.
Where you come
Jingle?
back.
A rejoiner music.
Rejoiner. There you go. I like that.
Yeah, you got to learn all these terms if you're going to be in radio too long.
Too long. Well, I think I've been in long enough now. I think it's going to be permanent.
There you go.
Yeah, I think.
I'm sorry, but radio gets in your blood, and you'll never be able to shake it ever.
I think I've disappointed enough people that I can stay in at radio now.
That's how you tell you're doing good.
When you disappoint enough people? Well, I tell you what, I really like the music. I mean, at least it's not wicka chicka wow wow.
Yeah.
I'm still wanting to dance on the table.
Did you like that, Barry? Winka chicka
What was
wow
it again,
wow.
Dino? Could you do that again for me, Dino?
A wicka chicka wow wow.
Uh-oh, we got our beatbox on. My name is Tom, and I'm not.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're back with Mr. Barry Westbrook from Doc Air out there in good old Tennessee. What's the humidity like in Tennessee?
It's the relative humidity outside is probably about 60%.
Oh, okay. It's not too bad then.
It's good. It's pretty good mold growing weather. If you're in the mold business, it's
Now,
not
what relative humidity percentages should we stay in our home to avoid? Well, I guess you could say for the best indoor air quality.
Well, one of the things that is important to understand about when you say humidity, relative humidity is relative to temperature, and so really what you're wanting to do, if you're going to say 70 degrees is somewhere around where you're going to keep the temperature in your house. You'd like to have the relative humidity somewhere between 30% and 60%. If it gets lower than that, you're probably going to have, dry skin and dry sinuses and static electricity and some other problems. And if it gets much higher than that, you're getting close to that mold growing region.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of it when we talk about down here having folks leave their humidistats down here to turn the air conditioning system on. We have a lot of folks, obviously snowbirds, they go back up north and they put humidistats on the wall and tell them not to turn it above 60%. Now, do you guys use humidistats up there or more?
A little bit, and we should be using them more. I mean, I think that what's there are times where you really want the system to just be controlling humidity. You don't really care that much about the temperature. And I think if you have, if you're going to be leaving your home in Florida for long periods of time, that might be a time where you would want to go to a dehumidifier. In other words, rather than cooling the house down, is to just have a system there that just stays, and you don't really care that much about, you're not worried about freezing, and you just want it to stay dry inside. Then you might be able to save some money by just putting a dehumidifier in there and setting it and letting it go.
Yeah, and that's a huge controversy back and forth down here with a lot of air conditioning companies, that of the debate is series versus parallel. When you wire those things, we've actually done shows on that, and you know, I could talk to 25 different contractors, and half of them will say series and half of them will swear by parallel when you wire that. But that I guess that's a topic for another show. But now let's I see thing relative humidity versus absolute humidity, since we're on the humidity topic.
Well, the point being that relative humidity changes with temperature.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you had a house that was made out of Tupperware, for instance, and we put,
I got an idea.
yeah,
I have an idea.
Hey, think of it this way: if you made a house out of Tupperware instead of a cardboard box, you'd already have a window.
You kidding me? Skylights everywhere. I'm thinking I can put skylights this afternoon in my house. Honey, I'm coming home grabbing your Tupperware, baby.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to change the house every time it rains.
There you go. You can look up at the stars without leaving your home, right?
Hey, look at that. It's the red bowl. It's our salad bowl for a skylight now.
Oh,
that could be a tourist attraction as we come through Florida. We could stop and see Dino in his natural habitat.
That's right. I like him. Got his feet sticking out one side of the box, and honey, don't touch it. He may bite.
It'd be like going to SeaWorld.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that.
All right. So okay? Relative humidity is changed with temperature.
Yeah. So in other words, if we had Dino in his box and we had it nicely tightly sealed up, the amount of moisture that is inside the box is the absolute humidity. That's not changing, because we're not having moisture either come in or go out of the box. But what we would find is the relative humidity would change as we change the temperature of the air inside the box. So, for instance, if we started out with 60% relative humidity in the box and we cool the air down in there, as the temperature goes down, the relative humidity is going to go up. So what would happen is, let's just say Dino's in his box and it's everything looks kind of dry, and it's 70 degrees. If we started to turn the temperature of the air in there, we get to a point where all of a sudden you're going to start to see moisture condensing on the walls of his box. And that point would be the dew point.
Okay.
So that's really the only difference. It's maybe it's a subtle difference, but it's just important to understand when you say relative humidity, it is relative to temperature. And you have to be thinking about that. And that's the problem, you know, in the wintertime here, you may have 40-degree outside air and the relative humidity be 70%. Well, when you bring that 40-degree air into a house and raise it up to the ambient temperature, say 70 degrees, that relative humidity goes from 70% down to like 20%. And that's why your house is so dry in the wintertime. It usually means that you've got a lot of leakage in your house and you bring in a lot of cold air. That's why a lot of, further north you get, the more likely you're going to have a humidifier to actually put moisture back into the air. Probably never going to have to worry about that in Florida.
Now, so what we're saying is when we're running the air conditioning system and we're removing moisture from the air, because obviously that's what the drain in the air conditioners are for, we are lowering the humidity. And now it's absolute humidity or the relative humidity?
Well, you should be doing both.
Okay.
In other words, as soon as a drop, or as soon as water vapor goes to a liquid state and condenses onto that coil, ideally it's going to drip off of that coil and go to your condensate line and be removed from your building envelope. And that's why you were talking earlier about short cycling or oversizing the air conditioner. If you've got a system that's too big and you don't give it time for that moisture to actually drip off and be removed, you can have a system that just continues to put the moisture back into the building, and then you can have a cool house, but it's also a clammy, wet house, and one that's going to have dust mites
and undersized returns will do that as well. If you can get blow off, if you have condensation on the drain and you're not sized properly in your ductwork, you can actually cause that moisture to be sucked off or blown off the coil as well.
Oh, wow.
Because of the speed, the velocity of the air, you're saying.
Yep, the velocity of the air, but also if you're undersized on your return, you're actually going to the unit's trying to suck from someplace, so it can almost create a suction in there, which will pull moisture off the coil. And then the same thing as well is if the unit's not set up properly. Now, if you don't have a variable speed air handler where the unit
slowly ramps
up and down, and it's just full blast, what'll happen with those is if you left the fan in the on position, the coil doesn't get a chance for that moisture to reduce off before, and you end up blowing humidity back into moisture back in. You're going to have a little bit, but if the ductwork's not sized properly, you'll have excessive blow off back into the house, and you actually add moisture back into the home.
Well, that goes to another pet peeve of mine is filtration in homes. If your return ducts are leaking, which in most cases I'll give you 10 to 1. If I just pick a house at random, then it's probably going to have a problem because nobody's ever checked it. But if you put a restrictive filter in your return because you want to have cleaner air, the irony is that in most cases what I see is that you actually are causing more air to be pulled out of the crawl space or the wall cavities, and instead of getting cleaner air, you actually get dirtier air, higher utility bills, more dust. So until you have made sure that your ductwork is tight and not leaking, it doesn't make sense to go out and buy these high performance filters that are going to cause a big restriction at the returns.
Yep, absolutely. Now, if you had to choose the best place to put the filter, where would you put it?
Well, what we've been doing for years, and the new building codes kind of corroborate our approach. The best place to put filtration is on the new air that comes from the outside, the ventilation air. Because if you think about it, back to Dino and his box, if we can just filter the new air coming to his domicile, we don't have to worry so much about the return air because the air's clean already.
Right.
And most of the dust and most of the particulates in the air inside your house were actually outside. We're outside pollution at one point in time. So we like to we think buildings ought to all have some source of outside air instead of just leaking. That's where most houses are ventilated, just leakage. But the new codes are going to require you to have an outside air supply that'll have a damper in it, and you'll be bringing new air that'll come into your return, and then they're going to require you to filter that air. And that's what we have a system that we install that has a HEPA filter on it. So it's a small volume of air, but it's HEPA filtered so that essentially all the new air is clean.
All right, is that like an ERV?
It's related, but it's very, very different. ERV basically sucks air in and sucks air out and brings air in at the same time. So it really doesn't do much to change the pressurization of the house.
Okay.
We like to bring air in and kind of create a positive pressure. In fact, we call our system proof positive just because of that.
All right, like that
reason.
Proof positive. Proof positive. Proof positive that Dino. Anyway, I'll leave that topic alone.
All right. One of
sounds like two syllables.
Yeah, you know what? You ever have a brain fart? You have a great question, all of a sudden you think, and I looked at Cliff and lost it.
So
I'll stop making faces.
What does that say about Cliff?
Oh, you should see him. He's got a face for radio.
Yeah.
Specialized face for radio.
All right. So what is the best way? I mean, you're saying control the air. What if we don't have outside air? What is the best way to control the indoor air environment in our home?
Well, if probably for most people, and this is surprising to most of them, but with no more knowledge of how their house, without being able to go and inspect and look at their ductwork system, I think most people would be better off just putting a low efficiency filter in the return.
Okay.
For the present, less chance of a problem that way. That filter is going to keep the dogs and cats from going through, but it's not going to create more pressure problems or restriction problems. And until you get that ductwork checked out, it just doesn't make sense to go out and spend the money on these filters if it's not really going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I had people call our show that say, "Oh, I have to have a filter, and boy, I can go 3, 4, 5 months without having to change my filter."
Yeah. Exactly.
And you go out to the house and you find out that Well, there's really not much air being pulled through the filter. It's sucking from every place else but.
Well, I'll give you two anecdotes. One was a young family, and their ductwork, they had such massive holes in their return. They had gone to one of these allergy relief stores and bought a filter that was so restrictive it was almost like a sheet of plywood. And I used my little smoke tubes to release some smoke in front of the filter, and literally no air moved.
Wow.
And the guy looked at me and said, "There's no air going across the filter, is there?" And I said, "No."
That's
So,
hilarious.
Well, Barry, tell us a little bit about now your company. What other areas besides Tennessee do you cover?
Well, I mean, we do work, diagnostic work, a lot of times for insurance companies or some of our clients. So, I've done work in Florida and West Palm Beach, and we've actually gone to the Bahamas. And it kind of depends on the magnitude of the problem. If it's a big enough problem and they need, a solution, then, we may go anywhere. I've done work in North Dakota, but most of our essentially building repair business or a weatherization business is probably within 50, 60 miles of the center of Nashville.
All right.
We also get up into western Kentucky and some northern Alabama.
Well, where's the best place for folks to get in touch with you if they want to pick your brain, or maybe they do have a large issue that they'd like you to take care of?
Well, if they can't find me on docair.com, then I'm going to be really disappointed.
Uh-oh.
All right.
So docair.com is where we want to go. And what would be would you prefer them to go there, or would you prefer a phone number to call maybe?
Yeah, if they put info at docair.com or
Okay.
B Westbrook at docair.com, they ought to be able to get, I've got a smartphone with email coming through all the time. So
That's Doc like D-O-C?
it's DOCAIR.
Yep, docair.com, and you can get in contact with Barry Westbrook and all his folks. And, if it's an issue that you've been struggling with over the years, and maybe you've had some of our, I guess, less than educated or less than honest contractors here in South Florida, which there's only one or two, right?
1 or 200,000. I remembered my question, Barry, just quickly because we just got a few minutes left.
We got a few seconds left.
Can you oversize ductwork, and is oversized ductwork wrong?
Well, you want to have enough velocity. There's a thing called throw. When the air comes out of the supply register, you want it to have enough speed that it's going to be thrown out into the room and mix with the air. So yes, you can have oversized ductwork.
Okay.
You want the air to be moving at a certain velocity when it reaches the room.
Yeah,
Okay.
too much, and then you'll have the rooms down at the other side. They'll just have nothing coming out of them.
If you're not careful, if the air's if it doesn't have enough velocity, it'll just be it won't move. It'll just kind of drip out of the supplies, and it won't mix.
And
well.
that's real important now with the as tight as we're building homes, and how air conditioning systems are actually becoming smaller in homes because of properly sizing. Ductwork is an issue, because if you put a smaller unit on too large of a duct, you'll have a bigger problem than you did before.
All right. Hey, well, Barry, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, Barry's going to be visiting with us again tomorrow, but you got to go to ComfortTimeLive.com to find out where you can hear Barry again. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back next Friday at 11 o'clock. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Barry, I'll talk to you.
Comfort Time Live is heard Fridays in the 11 a.m. hour. Right here on WPSL Port St. Lucie. The talk of the Treasure Coast.